I grew up in Cary, North Carolina, in a very typical American suburb. At that point in my life growing up, what you really wanted was to have a bigger house. I think the American dream by default is bigger is better most of the time. I mean, growing up, yeah, I wanted that big house and I wanted that big yard, and I would say that it's totally opposite for me now. I studied abroad in Aix-en-Provence, France, and it was just a completely different sense of scale. It was personal. It was built around the person before there was an automobile, and everything was tighter, denser, taller.
Welcome to my apartment. More stairs. There's the futon over here. And then the living area with a pull-out couch.
Living in the top floor of this building that it took 85 steps to get up to the top, and we were up in kind of attic space.
And an awesome little kitchen.
There was stairs right when you walk in, there were stairs going up to the living space, and then you're in the living space, and then there's stairs going up to, from the kitchen up to another room, and then in the room there's steps going up to the bathroom, and I mean, to take a shower you had to crouch down. You're literally up in the attic space, and when you look out, it's a grand city, a bunch of terracotta tile roofs and mountains beyond. It just invigorated me. I loved walking around, being in the city, so lively.
That's the cathedral. And then this is the way to the Place Marie.
And just so vibrant, and you could be walking the same route and always come across something new.
Le vélo.
When you're in a place like that, you can walk to the market. There was a market just a block from me that would run 7 days a week, and I could just walk there on the way to my bus stop if I wanted to get some food for breakfast. Get up and you learn the hot bread schedule at the local bakery. It was just the sense of living in a city, especially in Europe, where you really live beyond your home. It's just a way of living in the present and really being connected. So much of that has to do with the built environment that they're in. That's their perspective. Just as the suburb, it was my perspective going into all of that. Most of the cities in the US are these kind of smaller metro areas. Not many places are like New York and San Francisco and Chicago. The density that encourages small spaces. When I came back to this area, I realized even though we don't have the grid there already, the really dense grid that was created before the car, I could still have an urban lifestyle here. I think now people in our generation that are starting to think more about this urban way of living are starting to realize, well, maybe I don't want a big house because maybe I do want to be within an urban setting and be able to walk to places or bike to places and just feel more engaged, like you're actually a part of a city rather than just living in a city. So when I finished grad school, I was finishing up, starting to work locally, and was looking for a place to live. It was my first time to try to find a place on my own. I didn't have a large budget. It was really just by luck, because there aren't that many spaces that are small, that I found my apartment. I got in touch with somebody that was actually had a place for rent above a dentist office, and so it's a pretty interesting situation because it's above a dentist office. It's pretty urban for Raleigh, actually. I came as soon as I could and beat a bunch of Craigslist people that were interested in seeing the apartment. my apartment. So my apartment is 300 square feet. For Raleigh, that's really significantly small. At first when I walked in, I thought, wow, this is really small. Everything's in one space. And well, yes, that's a studio apartment. There's living and sleeping spaces, and then there's a kitchen space. It all just becomes one space, really. But it's great because then I have, my favorite part of my apartment is all these windows, and so I have so much light per square foot, I guess you could say. Since it's a dentist office below, I can usually see all the people coming in for their dentist appointments in the morning before I'm supposed to be getting out to work. I had always been interested in small spaces before, but really it's through living in a small space of my own. It really started to influence the way that I thought about space as a designer and what I wanted out of a space. So my entry is pretty nice. I like that it's actually a dedicated entry. You don't just walk into the space. But this divider wall is really nice because it's got bookshelves on this side and on this side, and it helps really divide the space. So then I've got my kitchen behind that wall, and again, it just kind of keeps going with all the built-ins, which is really special to make the pantry. And I've really just tried to use my space here very wisely because, as you see, I really only have this much countertop space. So a lot of times my sink and my stove become counter space as well. My fridge is a really good size, just the amount of space that I need. Since the freezer is all in the same space, it always defrosts just a little bit each time, but it's a really perfect size. I absolutely love the size. I tucked my bed into a former closet, so it was just a regular closet when I moved in, and I took the closet doors out and tucked my double bed into it. There's a kind of dressing area back here. It's really perfect. Everything within reach and everything so intentionally in place. I think 300 square feet is perfect for one person. And for one person in this stage of my life, everything is just within reach. There's purpose and intent behind everything that's here. In the US, in 1950, the average house size was only like 980 square feet. And then in 2007, the average house size was 2,500 square feet. So it grew immensely, and I think that our sense of normal is much larger than most people, most other countries, for sure. I know a lot of people really do want to get that house that has that double height living space because it's so grand, or has all those extra sitting rooms and the formal living dining room or the formal living room. But then you never use those spaces, yet somehow it adds to that social status. The kitchen just works so well with reach from just the way that the space is designed. When my boyfriend and I eat dinner here, it's really fun. I can set the table, sit down, and then we don't have to get up until even after the dishes are in the sink because we can reach everything from the seats at my table. And we can even put the dishes into the sink without having to get up. It's really kind of fun. Living here really got me thinking about proportions, about what do you really need to live, what is useful, what becomes more of a burden to keep up with cleaning and with trying to decorate, and what really helps you live the way that you'd like to live. I wouldn't really consider myself a minimalist. I'm a realist. I like to have a comfortable environment, and I am a person. I'm going to collect things, and I'm going to go through this continuous cycle of collecting and editing out, and I don't like to have to collect clutter, and I don't like to collect junk. I like to give my clothes away once a year at least to make sure that I am not collecting more things than I need. I can collect a few more things than I need to, and I just have to remember to go through an editing process every so often, and editing out what's unnecessary and having that be an intentional move in your life. When I moved into this apartment, I fell in love with this idea of intent, of how intentionally everything was designed in this apartment, from all of the built-ins to the layout, the really simple but very functional layout of the plan, and then to the intent that it brought to the way that I wanted to furnish the place. A bunch of little models that I made in architecture school, and to the way that I wanted to live. The idea of intentionally small is the idea of bringing intent into everything in your life, including your place where you live. Putting all of your love into your apartment and your small few things that you have, rather than trying to spread it out over a whole house, and it's becoming more of a chore rather than a life. That really got me interested in documenting the way that I was living in my apartment. So I started Intentionally Small. There's really a few chapters to the blog. I am, for one, really recording how it is to live in a small space. I knew of a few small places that I already loved and started with those. And so I document their apartment through pictures. And then I also draw a plan of the apartment. You make them all as custom as you want to get with it. There's a lot of talk right now about small spaces, and I love to see how people make homes and how they live, and especially if they're smaller spaces, because you have to be a little more creative in the way that you can live in a small space. One of the first places that I featured was my boyfriend's apartment.
Welcome to my live-work office and apartment. I have two small businesses. One is called City Fabric and one is called Walk Your City. Basically, I have my digital work desk, which is on this side of the room, and then my physical work desk on this side of the room. Anywhere from cutting boards and tools to all the packing and shipping supplies, a lot of the brand collateral. I have a lot of my tools and other things up here as well. And then on the digital side, I have a lot of my bookkeeping and records and printer and everything here. So pretty much everything that you could think of that's in a traditional office. I also have my kind of, ideation space over here with the whiteboard and accounts receivable, keeping track of orders and what's coming in, what's going out. This whole space is actually my living room as well. So when I have people over for office meetings, this is where we sit. But this is also where I'll watch a movie on my work computer. So this is the kitchen table, but it actually serves as a work table. And we actually have a leaf that we'll put in here, and this will actually be a fulfillment center. The bathroom's very simple. We worked with to produce these shower curtains. That's actually Paris. And then the bedroom is nice because you can kind of shut it off from the rest of the apartment. So the rest of the apartment almost feels like a work office. And we can kind of keep the strict living separated. This is where my library is, and I like to keep it fairly simple.
There's an interest in the current generation, the people that are young professionals that really want to go back to a smaller space and more intentional living. But in this area, there isn't a large amount of small spaces. So Raleigh, it's part of the Triangle in North Carolina. So the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. It's quite a hub for technology, for design, for health. It's a booming time right now here in Raleigh. It had a big growth. It doubled in size from 2000 to 2010. So right now, this area is really trying to think how we're going to be growing in the future and how to grow in a sustainable and healthy way. Raleigh has come up with a 2030 comprehensive plan to help guide that growth. And so part of that is the addition of accessory dwelling units. Back in the 80s, they banned the construction of new accessory dwellings. Accessory dwellings is this big umbrella of different kind of housing types, including granny flats, backyard apartments, backyard cottages, garage apartments, basement apartments, in-law suites. In the 80s, they were banned, and the ones that existed already at the time were grandfathered in. So these are usually located in historic neighborhoods along their alleyway networks in the backs of the houses. They were usually carriage houses and garages that had been converted into dwellings. So Raleigh was undergoing big changes to their planning and development code. As part of it, they were thinking of reintroducing accessory dwelling units. I saw the opportunity to be able to research this and see how it was going to become legal again in Raleigh to build an accessory dwelling unit. So the city was thinking of reintroducing these, specifically backyard cottages. I appreciate the social benefits, the eyes on the streets and healthier neighborhoods. Once UDO got into city council, I realized that it's really divided. There's a lot of people that are in support, but there's a lot of people that are against it.
They will not be built to the same quality. It's like we want to urbanize the city almost overnight, and I don't think that's necessary.
I'm single, I'm 32, I'm unmarried, I have no children. I want to live in a small apartment above a garage. That's my dream house for the next at least 5 years. Most houses in Raleigh feel too big.
Backyard cottages can be tall. So as somebody who wants to grow a vegetable garden, this is really annoying. My son can be taken away from me.
You're going to open it up for rental, and people are not, doesn't have the same interest that we have in our neighborhood.
When I was purchasing my house in downtown Raleigh, it was very challenging for me to find a reasonable neighborhood and a good price that was walkable to downtown.
Additional houses in the already small backyards of packed neighborhoods would mean no yards, no green space, would mean additional cars to park, increased noise, and possible fire hazards.
I moved here to Raleigh from another part of the state and purchased, together with my mother, who was at that time 88 years old, a property that has a small home in the front and a backyard unit in the back. It has been the answer to prayer. The community is walkable. My mother is elderly, so she does not drive. When my mother's time comes, I have very much planned, as a single mother, to use that income to help to offset my mortgage costs. So I think that it's sort of voting hope versus fear.
The cons are perceived by many as follows: increasing single-family lot density by 50%, increasing parking strength, reduced rear yard setbacks and loss of backyard privacy, abuses by rental investors and absentee landlords, poor design and construction quality, and lack of property management and maintenance leading to distressed property values. I'd like to state
Ultimately, the council decided that backyard cottages would not be included in the new Unified Development Ordinance. I think design is a major issue because you can't really regulate too much of a standard for the quality of design, and people are always worried that their property values could decrease if they're living next to an unattractive, smaller house. I think with good design, we can really start to introduce the idea that small can be beautiful. I mean, that's what I love about architecture, and that's why I want to design spaces. While working for a local architecture firm, I was part of a team that created design for a housing and planning competition.
I'm hoping to get them enough pantry storage elsewhere.
And it was an ideas generator to see how to help densify cities. Really, the idea was introducing alleyway living and these alleyway neighborhoods. We created this new zoning district, RA 50 units per acre. The other part of our project was about designing a kit of parts, a prefabricated dwelling that would be capped at 30,000 as the basic unit, but you can also add on. So there's all these different pieces to it. There's a kitchen piece, an entry piece, a living piece, sleeping piece. And so you can stack these and you can rearrange them so that you can customize each one, and you can also orient them in different ways to the alley. So it creates a base that you can really be able to lower the cost of each of these units, but then it creates this great community, inner community in the neighborhood, in that block, along with providing alternative affordable housing. A lot of people, they really do want to get that house with the yard, with the picket fence, the American dream, and maybe that means going further away from a city center so that they can afford it. But they don't really consider the cost of driving to those places.
So you designed these routes?
Yeah. So it comes up as 1.3 miles, 28 minutes, and it gives the directions, but then...
So you've got these individually...
Each one is unique.
Tagged.
Yes.
My boyfriend started a walking campaign called Walk Raleigh.
So these ones, I've
never seen sticky.
We put up a bunch of signs overnight one night, and they said it's a 10-minute walk to the Capitol. It's a 5-minute walk to Moore Square.
Will that fit? Right there?
It was really just to change the perspective of walking.
That height. Yeah, it's starting to rain, dude.
If you're living in a city where the norm is to just get in your car and drive to that place, it's really only a 15-minute walk, but since parking is available and it's ample and it's really easy to get there by car, then that's just the way that you do it. We're really committed to that urban lifestyle. I think it means getting people on the street if it's about trying to re-engage a place. So we're really committed to that urban living. I think just with that comes a sense of knowing that you live in your community and you're part of that community. There's just those moments where you really appreciate living in a place where people live and not just commute and work. Welcome to our new place. It's Matt and I.
Hey!
And this is our new apartment. We love it. Come in, please. So there's this, in the hallway we've got the bikes hanging, and we have our new dining table that's made out of reclaimed wood that we're obsessed with. So I had actually got to visit this place a year prior and actually profiled it on my blogs. We've got desk space here, which is really nice and convenient. We could have lived in a place a little bit further outside of downtown Raleigh and had a yard, had a bigger place for what we were paying for this place, but we really wanted to be right downtown. We wanted to have walking as an option and biking and busing and being right in the middle of the engaged city. So I'm going to show you that small space. I think the idea of small is relative. If you're in an area where everyone else has cars and yards and driveways and you choose, it's a decision, you have to choose to live in a small space. Having an intent of where you're living, it just brings just more of a sense of really appreciating where you are and why you're choosing to live that way.
It feels so much bigger than it actually is, because it really is only one room, but it can accommodate a lot of different uses and a lot of people, and it's...
We've got 4 doors that open up with all glass, so it really is just an extension. It's unfortunate, I think, when people start to make small a competition, because that's not what it's about. It's not about trying to have the smallest space. Because, I mean, are you really going to live in that small, teeny place forever? I try to think of it more as the life cycle of the space. And now, we're also engaged. So we're really excited about being in downtown Raleigh and seeing what our future holds. Matt and I, we make a really good team. It's really about the urban lifestyle that we're both really believe in. Because we're really coming at the same topic from different perspectives, but it's the same conversation. He's really a big picture thinker. And I focus in on the details, and we really balance each other out. I think with good design and with a tactful approach, we're hoping to show how small and urban can be beautiful and invigorating.